Lady from Minnesota is recognized for any questions you may have for the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't even know where to begin. I am sitting here listening to the other side of the aisle talk about impeachment as a political stunt and other various things that they're calling to discredit it. I was trying to take a few notes talking about cynical, politically driven impeachment, purely political, and it just seems very odd coming from that side of the aisle after what we've witnessed the few years before we were in the majority. Given that, Chairman Green, you know, they're saying all this and they're saying it's driven by policy differences, but what you have developed a clear case of willfully failing to enforce the laws Congress has tasked the administration with carrying out. And when Congress instructs the executive branch through legislation, is abiding by the instruction optional?
No, it is not. And it is the law of the land when we pass it, and they have a responsibility. As I mentioned before, the Iran-Contra hearing where Democrats said the president doesn't get to pick and choose which of these he wants. It's interesting, this memorandum from Secretary Mayorkas directs DHS employees to violate the law in terms of detaining criminal felons. The law is very specific. It even lists the types of felons. And yet here he told ICE that is not a reason to detain. And those individuals are basically directed by the secretary to not detain them when they're criminal felons. Now, we're not talking about just people who violated the law coming in. We're talking about criminal felons. So that is contrary to the laws this body passed and actually listed the crimes. He doesn't get to pick and choose. And so, yeah, it's not optional. And thank you for asking the question.
And I was going to ask you if you had examples that you wanted to put on the record, and you had it right there in writing. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Because of your investigations, you are able to have the proof that you need to proceed. And I find it just ridiculous that they continue to call this a political stunt and all kinds of things, because you have the proof that you need. You have done your investigation, you have done your work, you have made a solid case, and I appreciate that. And if there's anything else you have to add that I know there's going to be a few more questions, but if there's anything else, because I am so disappointed that that's the tack that my colleagues have taken from the other side. And so I want to make sure that you are able to say anything that you want to in defense.
Sure, this notion about what the framers intended, and I actually have a quote from a Federalist 65, but I really want to go, I know y'all's evenings were very busy, so I'll go straight to the guy who helped write the Constitution, Mr. James Madison. When he ran for Congress, became a congressman, and they were debating the formation of what would become the State Department. And the debate on the floor of the House was, well, what if we create this department, what happens if an untrustworthy person gets in the job? And this is what James Madison said: if an unworthy man be continued in office by an unworthy president, the House of Representatives can at any time impeach him, and the Senate can remove him, whether the president chooses to or not. The founders insisted that Congress has an ability to impeach unworthy cabinet officials, not just presidents. Public officials who refuse to comply with the laws of Congress and breach the public trust are exactly the type of unworthy men that James Madison called them, who were, worthy of impeachment. Our investigation found at least 7 laws where he's disregarded this co-equal branch of government. 40+ times where I've sent requests for information, he's just refused, not even responding to the oversight responsibilities that we have. We asked him 4 different times to come before our committee. He said no, or evaded. Judicial rulings have said cease and, to stop doing certain things, and he's ignored those court rulings. The separate branches of government was set up by our country to prevent tyranny, by our founders to prevent tyranny. And yet he's just operating however he wants to. Contravening the laws, disregarding court orders. That's not what we should expect from a cabinet secretary. And it is why I'm passionate about this. Thank you.
And I appreciate that, Chairman Green, and it truly is disappointing that our colleagues don't recognize that, and they can't see the facts there you've got on paper, that you've talked about the judicial proceedings, and so it's very disappointing that they won't actually help us with this and make sure that the laws are followed. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. Gentlelady from New Mexico is recognized for any questions you may have for the panel.
Thank you, Chairman.